The lone signal, the Zelthorian Empire, ruled the stars for over 1,000 years. Its warships controlled more than 600 planets. Its enemies fell before even touching the Empire's borders. To them, humans were just another weak species primitive. Emotional, loud, the Empire barely considered Earth a threat, until one strange signal appeared at the edge of their space. It was a simple human distress signal, repeating the same words again and again. System error, requesting assistance. It came from a deep space region known as the Dead Belt, a place where no Empire ship had ever gone before. Not because it was dangerous, but because there was nothing there, just empty darkness and dust clouds. So the Empire laughed. They thought it was just a broken human probe, or maybe a lost ship begging for help. Admiral Carthos, the Empire's High Commander, smiled coldly as he looked at the signal. "Send 20 warships. Clean it up," he said, sipping his drink. He didn't even bother to watch the fleet launch. It was routine. Crush the weak. Show no mercy. Return home. The fleet jumped into the Dead Belt within minutes. They moved like a swarm of steel giants, proud and unstoppable. Their scanners locked onto the source of the signal, and then they saw it. A single human ship, just one. It wasn't big, not compared to their cruisers. Its design was strange smooth, silent, glowing with a faint blue light. No shields detected, no weapons armed. It just sat there, as if waiting. The Empire's captain laughed. "This is it? One lonely ship?" He opened comms to the human vessel. "This is the Zelthorian Empire," he said. "Power down your ship or be destroyed." No reply, only silence. Then a message came in. Not a video, not a signal. It was just words. 4 words that chilled the entire fleet. "Turn back right now." The Empire's captain narrowed his eyes. "Fire," he ordered. Missiles launched. Plasma cannons charged. Lasers sliced the dark. But nothing hit the target. The human ship moved. Not fast instant. One moment it was in front of them. The next, behind them. And then the killing began. One by one, Empire warships exploded. No sound in space, just flashes of fire and torn metal. They didn't even know what hit them. Shields meant nothing. Their weapons failed. It was like fighting. A ghost within 60 seconds. 19 ships were gone. Only one remained, shaking, its engines damaged. The captain screamed for help, but no one answered. Then the human ship appeared again, directly in front of him. It sent one last message. This was her only warning. And then it vanished. Not warped, not cloaked, vanished. The surviving ship limped back to Empire space. Half its systems fried. Its crew in shock. They didn't speak. They didn't eat. They just repeated the same words. One human ship, one human ship. When Admiral Carthos saw the report, he slammed his fist on the table. "Impossible," he growled. He called it a trick, a lie, a failure of leadership. But deep inside, he felt something he hadn't felt in decades: fear. The Empire Council gathered quickly, noble lords, generals, tech masters, all confused, all angry. How can one human ship destroy 19 of our finest? What kind of weapons did it have? Was it even human? But no one had answers, only questions, and one terrifying truth. That ship had given them a warning, and they ignored it. Now, the Empire wanted revenge. Now, they would send an armada, not 20 ships, but hundreds. They would show Earth. It meant to challenge the stars. They would crush the human ship and make an example of it. They didn't know, they didn't understand, that this was not a battle. This was a test. And they had already failed it. Back in the Dead Belt, the human ship floated alone once more. Its lights dimmed, systems silent inside. A lone figure stood in the dark, watching holograms of the battle. A man with cold eyes and a voice filled with pain. He whispered softly, "Phase 1 complete." Then the ship vanished again, waiting, watching, preparing for what was coming next. Earth's last vessel, the Empire, thought they had seen the worst. But what they faced was only the beginning. What they fought was not just a ship. It was HSS Deliverance, a war machine Earth never wanted to use. Built in silence, born in fear, and launched in secret, it was the last of its kind. And it was about to change the galaxy forever, far beneath Earth's surface, hidden deep within the Arctic ice. A chamber pulsed with light. An old man stood in the center, staring at a large hologram. On the screen, he watched as 19 Zelthorian warships vanished in less than a minute. He didn't smile, he didn't blink, he only said 2 words. He's ready. Beside him stood Earth's president, her face pale, her hands trembling. Are we really going through with this? She asked. We were never supposed to activate the deliverance. The old man nodded slowly. The moment they fired first shot, we lost the option of peace. This isn't revenge, he added. This is balance. Back in space, HSS. Deliverance drifted silently. From the outside, it looked like a ghost. No flags, no lights, no signs of life. But inside, everything was awake. Every circuit, every weapon, every system tuned with deadly calm. The ship's core was not powered by fuel. It used something the Empire never understood: quantum folding energy. It could blink across space, bend light, and pierce shields before they even rose. This ship wasn't built for defense. It was built for one mission only: to survive long enough to send a message. At its heart stood the captain, a man with no name on record, no past on file. The only human alive with access to Project Deliverance. His code name was Cade. He didn't speak much. He didn't smile, but his eyes burned with something the Empire had forgotten: willpower. Cade wasn't a hero. He was a survivor, a child of the First Contact War. He had seen his home turn to glass, his parents erased by orbital fire. And from the ashes, he rose, not to hate, but to warn. He stared at the screen, showing the next wave of ships approaching. This time, not 20, but 700, an entire armada moving toward his position. He could hear the Empire's broadcast across open channels. The message was loud and clear. We will crush the human vessel. But Cade wasn't afraid. He whispered to the ship's AI. Begin Phase 2. The ship lit up. Its silent panels shifted like armor waking from sleep. Its weapons extended not to fire, but to scan. Every ship in the approaching Armada was now being recorded, tracked, studied. Every captain's voice, every weapon's signature, every move, all logged in the ship's memory core. This wasn't war. This was preparation. Back on the Empire's command ship, Lord Carthos stood in front of a wall-sized screen. He pointed at the human ship like it was a bug on glass. Destroy it, he growled. Fire everything we have. Weapons lit up the void. Missiles screamed through space. Beams of energy cut across the stars. But again, the ship didn't move. Instead, the Deliverance bent light around itself. The attacks passed through nothing but space. Then, without warning, the human vessel did something no ship had ever done. It split into 3 versions of itself, all real, all deadly, all firing at once. Ships exploded like fireworks. Zelthorian command ships turned into scrap in seconds. 100 warships lost in under 3 minutes. But then the Deliverance stopped. Its weapons powered down. Its clones vanished. It opened a channel, and Cade finally spoke. His voice echoed across every Empire comlink, every ship, every officer's ear. You have one last chance. He said, stand down, or we go to Phase 3. Silence followed. Empire officers looked at each other in fear. What was Phase 3? How many phases were there? How did one human ship do all this? On Earth, the president listened to the message. She turned to the old man and whispered, is he really doing this alone? The old man nodded. No, he said softly. He's doing it with purpose. Back in space, the Empire's fleet hesitated. They had never feared a single ship. But now, for the first time, they didn't just see a human vessel. They saw a warning, and still, they prepared to attack again. Cade closed his eyes. The past flooded in his city burning, the screams, the broken promises, and he made a decision. He didn't want to destroy the Empire, but he would not let them destroy others again. He whispered one final command, "Let the stars remember what they forgot," and the ship began to glow. The Empire laughs. The Zelthorian Empire did not understand fear. They ruled with fire, crushed rebellions, and silenced weak worlds. Their enemies burned in the past, so when reports came in that one human ship had destroyed over 100 warships, they refused to believe it. They called it a trick, a lie, a glitch in the system. In the Grand Hall of the Empire, millions watched a live broadcast across the stars. The Empire's leaders stood on a massive stage, wearing golden robes, smiling for the cameras. Behind them floated the symbol of power, a burning world, Lord. Karthos, scarred and proud, stepped forward and raised his hand. "People of the stars," he said, "today we erase a myth. The so-called human ship is a toy, a trick with no teeth. Our full might is already in motion." The crowd roared, flags waved, voices shouted, but deep inside the command tower, some voices didn't cheer. Admiral Rollick, a young strategist, stared at the battle recordings. He had watched them over and over again. He had seen how the human ship moved, how it read enemy tactics like it had seen the future. He leaned close to his superior and whispered, "My lord, I believe that ship is using technology beyond our understanding. It doesn't just fight, it predicts, adapts, and learns." Karthos laughed in his face. "Do not speak of fear," he snapped. "They are humans, animals who build too fast and think too loud. We are the Empire, and no ship, no matter how clever, can stand against us." But far away, at the edge of a forgotten star system, something ancient stirred. Deep inside the Empire's own database, a file they had sealed 300 years ago unlocked itself. The title glowed, "The Whisper Protocol." Inside it was one warning, left by a rogue AI that had once visited Earth and returned broken. If the humans ever unleash the ship called Deliverance, do not fight it, do not chase it, do not speak to it, just run. The Empire never listened to broken machines. They deleted the file, called it corrupted. Instead, they sent more ships, 600 more, and this time they were broadcasting live. They wanted the galaxy to see the final death of the human legend. News screens across 42 systems played the same countdown. Operation Final Fire was about to begin. The Empire's host smiled at the camera. "This is the moment Earth meets its end," one anchor said with pride. "We will be watching the total destruction of the human ghost ship." But Earth was watching too. In a hidden war room below New Geneva, generals stood around a silent map, the Deliverance's signal. Blinked calmly. It had not moved, not even an inch, but its systems had changed. The ship was no longer passive. Phase 3 was active, inside Deliverance. Captain Cade stood alone in the Chamber of Mirrors, a dark room filled with memory projections. His past replayed around him, his city burning, his family fading into light. He didn't speak. He simply touched one glowing panel, and the ship responded like it had a soul. Above him, a star began to flicker unnaturally. The fleet approaching him had no idea what was coming. They were focused on size, on numbers. They didn't know that power without. Control was useless, and arrogance was a blade turned inward. The fleet entered range. Thousands of weapons locked onto the human ship. Cade opened a single private channel, not to the admirals, not to the soldiers, but to the people of the Empire. He hacked every screen, every device, every drone, and spoke directly to the citizens. "Of 600 planets, I am not your enemy," his voice echoed. "I am the mirror the Empire never wanted you to see. They send you to die while they hide behind gold. This is not war. This is warning. Millions froze. Citizens looked at each other in silence. Some wept. Others trembled. The Empire's voice screamed to cut the transmission, but it was too late. Then the stars blinked. One by one, Selthorian ships began to disappear, not explode, just vanish. No sound, no light, gone like dust and wind. Deliverance didn't fire weapons. It used something else, a tech even Earth barely understood. The last thing the Empire's commander saw before his ship vanished was the face of Cade, calm, sad, and unshaken. And as the screen went black, the people across the galaxy whispered the same words. The Empire laughed. But the human didn't. And now they are gone. Asterisk when stars bleed at first. The galaxy thought it was a solar flare, a minor ripple in the edge of space. But then the stars themselves began to flicker. One by one, bright systems dimmed without warning. Sensors failed, ships lost their way, and space turned unfamiliar. It wasn't a storm. It wasn't natural. It was the sign that Deliverance had awakened. The Empire had lost nearly 1,000 warships. Gone, not destroyed, not debris, not wreckage, just gone. No answers, no survivors, only silence. And from that silence came fear, not from Earth, but from within the Empire itself. On the Empire's capital planet, Carnaxus Prime, the skies changed color. They once glowed purple with twin suns. Now they turned red, not from battle, but from something deeper, the bending of light. A soft hum filled the sky, like a warning from the stars themselves. In a tower that reached the clouds, Lord Carthos stared up at the heavens. He clenched his fists, eyes wide. This is impossible. He growled, "Our enemies don't have this power." But someone beside him whispered, "Maybe they didn't, until we gave them a reason." Deliverance had not moved from its position. Yet its presence was everywhere, from mining stations to luxury stations, from farm worlds to war factories. The message had spread. The Empire is not invincible. For the first time in centuries, rebellion began to rise. Not with weapons, but with questions back on Deliverance. Captain Cade stood inside the command chamber, his eyes focused on a model of the Empire's throne world. He didn't plan to destroy it. That would be easy. He planned to expose it, to reveal every secret the Empire had hidden under layers of blood and control. He reached forward and touched a sequence on the panel, and then said, "Activate MirrorNet." All over the galaxy, holograms began to appear. On every screen, in every station, even in schools and temples, images played classified. Documents. War crimes, slave labor lists, secret prisons, hidden famines. The Empire's darkest truths were now public, not by force, but by truth. And with that truth, the people began to turn back on Carnaxus Prime. Red rain began to fall, not water. Nanoparticles leaking from the upper orbit. The Deliverance was not attacking. It was scanning, marking military targets, command hubs, and weapon caches. Without firing a single shot, it could collapse their entire structure. Inside the Empires, High Command, alarms screamed, systems blinked offline, power grids shut down. Carthos stood in panic, shouting orders. But no one listened anymore. He looked into the mirror on the wall and saw himself, old, broken, afraid, and behind him a message appeared on the glass. "This is how empires end." He turned to find who had written it, but no one was there. Deliverance was not just a ship. It was everywhere. It had become a ghost in their systems, a shadow in their skies, a memory in every citizen's mind. Far away, on a resistance moon that had long surrendered, a child looked up at the red sky and smiled. "Mom," she said, "the stars are crying." Her mother nodded slowly. "No," she said, holding her close. "They're bleeding." Deliverance had done what no army could do. It turned fear around. It made the strongest empire look small. Not with violence, but with precision, with knowledge, with memory. The Empire had sent fleets. The Empire had sent lies, and Deliverance had returned the truth. Now, the stars weren't cheering for the Empire. They were silent, watching, waiting. Because something was coming. Not war, not peace, but justice. And it wore the face of a man who had lost everything and chose not revenge, but awakening. The Ghost Captain. No one knew his real name. Not even the highest-ranking Earth generals. He had no birthplace, no family records, no childhood files. Just one coding name whispered across black files and redacted reports, Cade. And in the Empire's darkest corners, they had begun calling him something else. The Ghost Captain. Some said he was not human. Others believed he died in the First Contact War and was rebuilt from hash and machine. But the truth was harder too. Explain, Cade was not born for war. He was born because of war, years ago. When the Empire first reached Earth's edge, they expected surrender. Instead, they found resistance. Cities fell, but not without a fight. And among the ruins, a child survived, hidden in fire. Surrounded by silence, he watched his world burn. He never forgot the sound of orbital cannons, or the voice of his mother, whispering her last words. As she covered him with her body, he was found days later, covered in ash, barely breathing. Earth scientists took him, trained him, prepared him, not to destroy, but to become something the galaxy had never seen a weapon that thinks like. A man, and feels like a storm. Back on Deliverance, the ship pulsed gently, like a sleeping giant breathing in deep space. Cade stood inside the ship's memory vault, where lights flowed like water. He wasn't speaking. He was remembering. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw faces lost, friends, burning skies, promises broken by fire. And now, with the Empire on its knees, he didn't feel victory. He felt the weight of choice. Should he finish it? Wipe out the throne world, leave no trace of the regime? Or should he leave the door open, let the Empire fall from within, let the people decide what comes next? The ship's AI spoke gently. Captain, new fleets are forming. 3 systems are preparing a counterattack. Cade nodded slowly. They're afraid, he said, not of me, but of losing control. Meanwhile, across the Empire, stories spread like wildfire. Children played games pretending to be Deliverance. Elders whispered in temples about the prophecy of the ship with no flag, and across military channels, officers argued whether to obey or flee. In one distant system, a captain disobeyed orders. He took his fleet and left the Empire, broadcasting a message. We will not die for cowards. Deliverance had broken more than ships. It had broken the illusion of power, and behind it all was a man the Empire could not understand. He didn't speak in threats. He didn't demand surrender. He simply acted with purpose, with silence, and with the memory of a lost home burning behind his eyes. Back on Carnaxis Prime, Lord Carthos stood before a private council. Only 5 others remained, once rulers of galaxies, now shadows in panic. We must find the Ghost Captain. One whispered, we must end this, but Carthos shook his head. He cannot be killed, he said, voice shaking, because he's already dead inside. At that moment, every screen in the chamber lit up, not with a warning, not with a demand, but with an old image, a child standing in rubble, wrapped in a flag half burned. Below the image, a message blinked. You created me. In space, Deliverance turned slowly. Aligning with the Empire's central system, Cade stood motionless, his hand hovering over a single command phase 4. Not a weapon, not an attack, but something else entirely. A full release of every Imperial secret ever stored. Truth as a weapon, light sharper than any blade. His voice echoed softly through the ship. Let them see what they truly are. And with one touch, the sky changed again. The stars did not bleed this time. They began to speak Asterisk fall of the Empire. The Empire didn't fall with fire. It fell with truth. It didn't scream. It choked. One lie at a time. One secret at a time, until there was nothing left to hide behind. Across the galaxy, people stood still. Markets stopped. Ships froze mid-travel. Even war zones went silent. Because every screen, every broadcast, and every mind link was suddenly hijacked. And the only thing they showed was everything. Files once sealed in vaults deep under Carnaxis Prime, now played in public. Executions of peaceful leaders. The poisoning of rebel colonies. The use of child soldiers on mining moons. No edits, no warning, just the raw truth. And Deliverance didn't explain any of it. It didn't have to, on Earth. Millions watched with tears and clenched fists. For years, their pain had been a rumor. Now it was proof. Now the galaxy knew what Earth had survived, and why Deliverance had risen. In the Empire's throne city, the sky changed again. It wasn't red now, it was white, not from light, but from the full spectrum scan that rippled across the atmosphere. Every hidden weapon, every secret tunnel, every locked archive now visible. Cade wasn't attacking. He was exposing them inside the Empire's war tower. Lord Carthos screamed. His voice echoed through empty halls. No one answered. His elite guards had vanished. His generals had fled. Even the AI systems refused to obey him now. Deliverance had slipped inside them like a whisper. Soft, silent, total. Cade watched from orbit. He stood still, not with pride, but with peace. His voice spoke only once more that day. Across the stars, across languages, across borders, his words landed on every world once ruled by fear. "This is not the end," he said. "This is your beginning." And with that, the throne room of the Empire's palace, the place that had sentenced billions to death, collapsed. Not from bombs, but from within. The support structures had been rotting for years. Deliverance simply revealed the cracks. The people did the rest. On rebel moons, bells rang for the first time in centuries. On forgotten planets, children drew pictures of a ship with wings of light. And on Earth, the president stood before her people and said, "The ghosts of our past are free." Carnaxis Prime entered a blackout. No Empire systems were left standing. Power grids failed. Towers fell, but no enemy troops landed because they weren't needed. Truth had already won, and the Empire had no more lies to breathe through. Lord Carthos tried to escape. He boarded a stealth shuttle and fled into deep space. But Deliverance tracked him like a shadow follows light, not to kill, not to punish, but to leave him alone, with every screen in his ship showing the things he had done. No sound, no escape, just memory. His own mind became his prison, and Deliverance left him there, floating in the dark, surrounded by silence, and the weight of every name he erased. The Empire's communication grid collapsed next. Its currency turned to worthless code. Its fleets fragmented into rogue groups, most choosing to never fight again. And in the vacuum left behind, voices rose, new governments, new leaders, chosen by the people, not forced by fear. And still, no one knew where Deliverance would go next. It had not returned to Earth. It had not answered any signal. Some believed it went dark. Others said it entered another galaxy. A few whispered that it remained behind every shadow in space, watching, waiting, guarding. But one thing was clear. The Empire was gone, not because it was destroyed, but because it was seen. And no one forgets the moment the stars stopped bleeding and started telling the truth. Legends are born. It began as a whisper, a quiet voice in the dark, a tale told by survivors, by rebels, by children who once hid from Empire drones. They spoke of a ship with no flag, of a man with no name, of a silence so deep it made warships tremble. They called it Deliverance, and they called him the Ghost Captain. Cade was gone, not dead, not captured, just gone. No one knew where Deliverance had gone after the fall of the Empire. It had simply blinked out of existence. No trace, no trail, no energy readings. It had done what it came to do and vanished like a ghost returning to sleep. But its mark on the galaxy could never fade. New governments rose from the ashes of the fallen empire, not with weapons, but with votes. People chose leaders, wrote their own laws, and opened their own skies. For the first time in centuries, freedom had a shape, and it looked nothing like the old throne worlds on a small desert planet, far from the core systems. A school opened. Its walls were made of stone and memory. Its first lesson was history. The teacher, a gray-haired woman with soft eyes, stood before her students and spoke. Today, we remember the day the stars were rewritten, the day truth became stronger than fear, and the day one man reminded us, freedom does not come from war, but from courage. She turned to a screen behind her. It showed a single image, a black ship floating in space, glowing faintly with lines of blue. Beneath it were 5 words. You are warned with kindness. On Earth, a statue was built, not of a warrior, not of a conqueror, but of a quiet man standing beside a small ship, eyes closed, hand over his heart, no name, no rank, just the word, Cade. People from all over the galaxy visited the statue. They left messages, flowers, models of their homeworlds, and sometimes they stood in silence, not to mourn, but to remember. And above them, unknown to most, a single drone floated in orbit. It carried no weapons, no voice, just one task to watch, to warn if the old darkness ever returned, because Deliverance had not been destroyed. It had simply gone quiet, like a sleeping guardian in the stars, in deep space, where light fades and only the brave go. A child once claimed to see something, a shadow moving faster than light, a whisper across her ship's sensors. When she told her parents, they smiled gently. That's just a story, they said. But she knew. She felt it, and across the stars. That same feeling lived in others. A quiet comfort, a voice in the back of every explorer's mind, that if evil rose again, if another empire dared to rule with fear, the ghost captain would return, not for glory, not for revenge, but to finish what he started. He had become more than human, more than a legend. He had become a reminder that one ship, one voice, one choice can rewrite the future of a galaxy. And in that quiet truth, legends were born, not in battlefields, but in memory, in hope, in the hearts of those who looked to the sky and whispered, we remember Deliverance, we remember Cade, and we will never forget.